Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Barry here with the Scryguystv, and today we're gonna be talking about some uncommons and commons that are gonna be great for Commander from Modern Horizons 3. Let's get into it. Uh, First card we're going to be talking about is Charitable Levi, 1 and a white, enchantment, non creature spells, cost 1 more to cast. Whenever a player casts a non creature spell, put a collection counter on it. If there are 3 or more, sacrifice it, draw a card, and search your library for a plains card and put it onto the battlefield and shuffle your deck. Really great. By the time it gets back to your turn, this will probably be gone, but it's gonna do so many things for 2 mana. It's going to tax your opponents for whatever mana rocks they want to play. This could possibly just be blown up by just one player just trying to play out his hand, or at least by 2 players. But you're gonna tax your opponents, you're gonna draw a card, and then you're gonna search your library for a plains card. It doesn't have to be a basic plains, it could just be any dual land with the plains land type in the thing. So definitely I think it's worth a tryout. It's very splashable, I feel like, for it only being 1 pip of white. You could put it in 3 2-color decks, obviously the monocolor deck. Yeah, I think it's just a pretty solid card, and especially with the tri lands, like the Ikoria lands, it can get so much. So even in a 4-color deck, I think it's pretty good. 5, whatever. It could just go in a lot of decks, but definitely worth a pickup. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this card, and yeah, it's a good card. Definitely pick it up. Next, we got Metastatic Evangel, 1 and a white. Whenever a non token creature enters the battlefield under your control, proliferate. Just great for any kind of counter strategy. Obviously, there's a bunch of those, especially now that we have more energy, like energy counter synergy. Coming out of Modern Horizons 3, Planeswalkers is the obvious one. Just so many ways that you can possibly just ultimate all your Planeswalkers in a turn, especially if you have something like Deadeye Navigator, Peregrine Drake combos, or Displacer Kitten type of situations. Definitely a strong card. Super powerful at an uncommon slot. So, Proliferate is always. Next, we have Emrakul's Messenger, 1 and a white, creature, Eldrazi Fairy Rogue, devoid flying. When you draw your second card each turn, create a 0/1 spawn token that can sacrifice itself for colorless, and it is a 2/1. I would love to believe that this card is possibly playable in different stages of power levels in Commander. Again, I'm not a Modern Horizon, like a modern player type of guy. I'm more of a Commander, so this is just coming from my Commander brain. I like that it does say second card of each turn, meaning that if you have things that are going to let you draw cards on your opponent's turn, by the time it gets back to you, you could possibly have 4 Eldrazi Spawn, which can seriously accelerate your game plans to play whatever you need to play, whether it be like something like Omniscience or Ulamog or anything like that, just depending on the deck that you're playing. God, this would have been probably a rare mythic if it just said after your first card draw, whenever you would draw a card, create a 0/1. But that's probably way too powerful. But yeah, definitely worth a pickup. I would love to try this out in all my blue decks just to see, because it's just nice that you could get the mana production from sacrificing them, or you can just get blockers when you need it in a pinch. So you brainstorm just to block somebody. It could really mess someone's math up. But yeah, really good card at uncommon. We have Utter Significance, 1 in a blue, flash, enchantment creature, or enchant creature. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and has a base power of 1/1, a base power and toughness 1/1, and then you could pay 2 and a waste to exile target creature. Pretty solid removal. I don't think I played over things like Reality Shift, where it just already exiles the card there. But sometimes it's harder for people to deal with enchantments. Like you can't. Oh no, you can't Swan Song this. But yeah, no, just a pretty solid piece of removal at a common slot. And if you need to exile it before they can possibly sacrifice it somehow, well, maybe not. But yeah, just solid. Next we have Sink into Super 2, 1 and 2 blue. I'm actually a huge fan of these new like double face cards where on the back side you get to have them come in untapped to pay 3 life. Uh, just don't abuse it. I know some people are gonna be like, oh, I can put my land count down from 35 to 31 with all these new modal cards. I mean, 3 is life is a resource in Commander, but like, man, if you're paying, I don't know, if you're replacing 5 lands for these cards, you're essentially paying 15 life, and that's gonna get pretty low. But I believe this one and the green one are probably my favorite ones. This one is nice because it's a soft counter, meaning that like it does get around cards like Dovin's Veto, where it can just return the Dovin's Veto back to their hand, because essentially it's not countering the spell, it's returning the spell. And I like that this is also pretty much a modal card, because it gives you the ability to bounce a non-land permanent to an opponent's hand. So really great there. There's the back side of it where you can go and pay 3 life, and yeah, and then it comes in untapped. Oops. Next we have Accused Marauder. It's a flesh bag. Just got power crept on by 1 mana. 1 in a black. When it enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a non-token creature, and it's a 2/1. So that's great. That's a great little wording right there for the non-token portion, just because so many people just have token decks nowadays, and these type of effects have sort of seen like a more downplay as of late, as far as I've noticed, because they can just go ahead and sacrifice token creatures. This one at least specifies that it has to be a non-token creature that they sacrifice. So hopefully, I mean, you're gonna be able to kill out the hex-proof Voltron commander that you couldn't get rid of, or maybe someone is just rebuilding, but they've had so much access to mana that they decided to play an indestructible Ulamog or something like that, or a Kozilek or something like that. So this being able to take down one of those Eldrazi Titans just is a lot of fun. Next we have Grim Servant, 3 in a black creature, zombie warlock. Menace: when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a card with mana value less than or equal to your devotion to black. Reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. You lose 3 life, and it is a 3/2. It's just Diabolic Tutor. I believe that's the 4 mana one, right? On a creature. It's on a stick. Reason why I put it on here though is that you can really never have too many tutor effects in Commander. That it's easier to recur from the graveyard, especially in black, when you're just, you know, just have a whole bunch of access to recursions. It's nice. It's the reason why I'm pretty sure it's an uncommon is because it's limited to the amount of devotion that you have, so its splash ability is fairly low. But if you're playing 2-color decks, I can still see it getting play there, just because as long as you have access to maybe like 5 devotion and less, there's so much that you can grab. You know, you can grab Vampire Tutor, Demonic Tutor, Grim Tutor. You can grab any tutor that you want pretty much. Toxic Deluge is at 3, Damnation's at 4, Deadly Rollick is at 4, Snuff Out is at 4. What else is there? There's just a ton of things that you can grab, even 4 or less, as long as your devotion is low. But even if it's the only creature that's coming down, it's equal to that. So you can go ahead and grab your Vampire Tutor or something like that, or Dark Ritual. I don't know. Grab whatever is right for the situation. Play it whenever it's right for the situation. But yeah, I think it's worth a try in your decks, and it also has a pretty relevant creature type in zombie. Next, we have Glimpse the Impossible, 2 in a red. Exile the top 3 cards of your library. You may play those cards this turn. If you don't, put them into your graveyard, then create spawn tokens equal to each card you put into the graveyard this way. Really great. I mean, sometimes I definitely have whiffed on Jessica's Wills where I exile 3 lands, so I get to maybe play one of them if possible, if I didn't make my land drop yet, and then now I've just lost value on the 2 other ones. So I think this is just a common Jessica's Will without the mana production from the red mana, right? Just because if you say you rip into 3 lands, you get to maybe play one if you haven't played your land type, and now you have 2 bodies on the battlefield that can act as blockers or act as mana dorks when you need them to be. So I think you're getting a lot for a common in this card. Next, we got Unstable Amulet, 1 in a red artifact. When it enters the battlefield, get 2 energy counters. Whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, Unstable Amulet deals 1 damage to each opponent. You may tap this for 2 energy to exile the top card of your library. You may play it until you exile another card with Unstable Amulet. So the first and the third portion of this is only really going to matter if you're playing an energy counters deck, or maybe you have proliferated synergies so you can make more energy. But really, we're playing this for the middle portion of it, just because so much in red does I believe it's called Impulse Draw. So much in red lets you exile cards from the top of your library and then play them for the turn. There's commanders that do it with like Prospect. What is it? Oh my gosh, what's his name? Not Prospect. You got the Rakdos guy. Oh Jesus. But there's so many of those type of cards. You have Ren's Resolve. You have the 4 mana enchantments that let you choose modes, or let you exile the top cards of the library and play it like that. You have the Gruul Wolf Commander that makes wolves whenever you play cards from exile. You have a Tali that does it. So this being able to dome out incremental damage every time you're playing those kind of effects is going to be great, and sometimes kind of like under the radar. Some people will let it go, or for a little too long. So I think it's definitely worth a try out if you're playing any kind of deck that has a decent amount of those effects in it to be able to dome out damage like Gutter Snipe. Next, we got Monstrous Vortex, 3 in a green. Whenever you cast a creature spell with power 5 or greater, discover X, where X is that spell's mana value. So this is basically just the Ixalan Dinosaur Commander on an enchantment. Not very splashable in a lot of things, but splashable but being able to fit into the things that matters, right? Any deck that's playing creatures with power 5 or greater is going to kind of snowball further into the game plan, right? You're playing commanders like Goreclaw, you're playing commanders like Gruul, Itali, anything Simic, especially like if you're playing Seafood Simic, which is like the serpents, leviathans, and all that stuff, is going to be able to trigger this so much. And the fact that they can kind of cascade into each other, right? Because if you're playing other things that are 5 power, I believe you should still be able to do it again, almost working like Emoti, where you cascade into like something 6 or greater, you get to cascade again. So it's pretty nuts, man. This card is pretty nuts, I think, especially at an uncommon, but the stipulation of the power 5 or greater does kind of matter. So Disciple of Freyalise, 3 and 3 green, creature elf druid. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, you gain X life and draw X cards, where X is that creature's power. This card is pretty much Disciple of Bolas, I believe it's called, the 4 mana black creature that does the same thing. It's also a modal card for a land. You could pay 3 life to have it come in on tap, but this isn't really splashable in a lot. Maybe you can push it to 2 colors, but 3 is going to be a little bit hard with the 3 pips of green. But for mono green, this is amazing, because sometimes you kind of vomit your whole hand onto the board. Maybe you didn't run into a concordant crossroads, so now you have to hope that most of your board stays on the field. But if it gets blown out, or maybe you have like one indestructible creature that you could, and you need to refill your hand, you can go ahead and play this, draw that many cards, and then be right back into the action of things. And then maybe you have this at your opening hand and you just need a land, so you can go ahead and play that as well. But just anything in green that lets you draw a bunch of cards. I mean, green's card draw is always conditional anyway by creatures, whether them having entered the battlefield, or cards like Life's Legacy or Greater Good, where it all really hinges on the creature's power, rich cards expertise, and all that stuff. What else? Freaking Return of the Wild Speaker. Cards like that, it's always very conditional on either the creatures on the board or the highest powered creature on your board. So just another great aspect of this. And this is great because it comes on with a 3/3 body, and you gain life from the sacrificed creature. Next, we have Propagator Drone, 1 in a green, devoid. Creature tokens you control have evolved, and then you could pay 4 mana to create a 0/1 Eldrazi spawn, and it's a 2/2. Really, this is kind of a niche pick for me, just because I do love token decks as well, and giving your tokens the ability to evolve and get bigger is going to be great. Maybe you're playing this in like a Golgari deck, and you have Bitter Blossom out, and you're constantly making fairies, and they keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and now you have an army of fairies that are, I don't know, 4/4s and 5/5s that are kind of hard to block because they have flying. The fact that it can make some Eldrazi spawns, which again could also get bigger, but also give you the ability to ramp up when you need it to. I think it's just a pretty solid all-around card, but it's mainly focused or niched into token decks. But I still think it's worth a try. It's also a mana sink when you need it to be. Sometimes you're just jazz handing and you're like, well, what do I do with all this mana? Or like, well, I guess I'll just make some Eldrazi spawns, and then boom, when you get back to your turn, Crater Hoof, you're like, oh, okay, cool, win. I don't know. There's a lot there though. Last but not least, we have Vexing Bauble, 1 mana artifact. When a player casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell. You can tap it for 1 mana and draw a card, sacrificing and all that stuff. So just a great little hate piece for it. It means like Lavinia on an artifact, and being able to sacrifice it at will so you can use your free counter, or you could use your free spells, is going to be great. Because if you need to use Deflecting Swap, Fierce Guardianship, any of the flares that are instant, or sorceries that you don't want to like waste and all that stuff, I think there's a lot there that being able to sacrifice it when you need it to be gone is going to be so good. And like the fact that this shuts down things like fast mana as well, like Lotus Petals, Mana Crypts, Crow Moxes, Mox Diamonds, Mox Opals, like a lot of that, if you're able to have it come down on turn 1 before anybody else, that could slow down a lot of people enough to where you are able to catch up and all that stuff. But this card's like $5 right now, and I feel like it's going to be one of those cards that just gets more expensive and more expensive, so you might as well just pick them up now. I mean, that's how I felt about Pitiless Plunder when it first came out of Ixalan, and I was just mainly transitioning to playing more Commander at that point, and I was like, oh, this card is nuts. It's only 50 cents. I'm going to pick up like 5 of them, because I'm going to build 5 decks or whatever with them in it. And then now it's like, I think it's like kind of came down to use. It was like topping off at like $8 or $7, and then it got the reprints, and I think now it's like down to $3, but then the foils are still fairly expensive, especially the OG foils. But yeah, that's gonna be my recommendations for the uncommons and commons to pick up for Modern Horizons 3. Let me know your guys' recommendations in the comments down below, and then make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we appreciate you guys.